I actually have to turn my phone on and to feel this next wave of global hate. It was tough, like I didn't want to get out of bed. This is what I was born for. I'm not going to be stopped. I don't feel like I have a choice because I've seen too much and all of the evidence points in one direction. And so it's just time for us all to step up and do the one thing that I think is become tough for us, and that is be willing to be unliked. There's points when I get very angry. The more I learn about what these people have done, the more I see their bold-faced lies, the more I see them step up in front of the cameras and say something that we have absolute evidence that we know they're lying through their teeth.
This current film goes pretty hard on Bill Gates. Do you ever worry that you'll ever get blowback somehow or repercussions when you do that?
Yeah, of course. You know, it's a reality. And I will say that a lot of the doctors that I interviewed, some of them didn't want to go on camera. And a lot of them said, especially the doctors in the third world countries that I interviewed in Africa and in India and so forth. And a lot of them would say, I can't. It's just too dangerous. Bill Gates is a very powerful man, and I live in a very vulnerable country. And I understand that. I have a very, very serious dead man switch that will be triggered at the moment if anything happens to me. It will only do them greater harm.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Mikki Willis, the American independent filmmaker and director of the recent documentary feature film Plandemic: Indoctrination. In May this year, at the height of the coronavirus lockdown, you published Plandemic, a 26-minute short film featuring Judy Mikovits. Soon after, the video went super viral and was banned by all major technology platforms for promoting, quote, widely debunked conspiracy theories about coronavirus. Yesterday, on August 18th, London Real world premiere live stream your follow-up feature-length film, Plandemic: Indoctrination, on our Digital Freedom platform. The movie was watched by 1.98 million unique viewers, giving us the world record for the biggest live stream broadcast of a documentary film in human history. Plandemic: Indoctrination tracks a 3-decade-long trail that follows the money and leads directly to the key players in the COVID-19 pandemic, unmasking major conflicts of interest with decision makers that are managing that crisis. Mikki, welcome to London Real.
Thank you, Brian. It's good to be here.
Hey, great to have you. Before we get started, I just want to announce that we are streaming this too on our new Digital Freedom platform, which is a censorship-free, independent broadcasting system that is of the people, by the people, for the people, and available exclusively on our website at freedomplatform.tv. Can everyone watching this now please share this link via the sidebar to any and all of your social media channels? Let me repeat that. Can everyone watching please share this now via the sidebar to any and all of your social media channels? This is important. Simply ask your friends and family to give us 15 minutes and then they can decide. Mikki, I pledge to you and everyone watching us that none of this conversation will be edited, censored, removed, or banned, and that anyone in the world can watch the full version of this episode free at freedomplatform.tv/Willis, thanks to the generous donations of over 36,000 people around the world that I affectionately call the London Real Army. For anybody wanting to become a founding member of the Digital Freedom Platform, they can visit freedomplatform.tv/give to donate and fight with us on the front lines to protect our human rights. Here at London Real, we've been a platform for free speech since 2011. And Mikki, I am pumped to talk to you today. Wow, we had a crazy day yesterday. How are you feeling after you drop your baby to the world after working on this thing for, well, 3 months, but also you've been on this project for a long time. How are you feeling?
Well, after my first real night's sleep, I feel pretty good. The last 3 months have been sleepless and a lot of work for us to compress what would normally take 3 years which is a typical number to produce a documentary, full-length documentary, into 3 months was definitely, I give a lot of credit to my incredible team for being there and doing 14 to 16-hour days to make that possible. So in answer to your question, I'm doing great today. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm good, man. We got a great team here, and I'm just so impressed with the work you put in. All of the details to make this 75-minute film. There's so much work going on behind the scenes and you're an incredible filmmaker, Mikki, really. It's no joke what you do. We've made our share of feature films here, but to watch you work, it's really inspiring. I think you're a great storyteller. Visually, it's an amazing movie. I got to watch it Friday morning, and me and my chief strategy officer, we were like, uh-oh, this is going to make waves. So just super excited. I wanted to bring everybody up to speed on the last 24 hours, kind of what happened yesterday. And then I'd love to go in with you and hear your reactions to the reactions of the film, and then maybe get you to talk about how you came up with the ideas in this film, because they're pretty revolutionary and very different than the first short. So let me jump into that. Look, for the background, you and I first started talking, I think about 3-4 months ago. We got introduced by, I think, Dr. Rashid Buttar. I had watched the first short on Plandemic and was really impressed. We had a great conversation. We had Judy Mikovits on the show, and you were like, Brian, I'm working on this major documentary. And we thought, wow, when it's finished, maybe we can collaborate. It was really early in the Digital Freedom Platform. I think we'd only streamed a few things. And then I got contacted last week by Eric, one of your producers, and he was like, Brian, we're ready. And I was like, oh my gosh. And we literally put everything together in a matter of days. My tech team here upgraded everything, all of our physical servers. We went all to these whole Cloudflare pieces, all these redundancies, because we really thought this was going to tax our technology, and it did. Yesterday, we had multiple brute force attacks on our site. Matter of fact, right before I sat down in the chair, my tech guy just said, we're getting attacked again right now to try to take the site down. I don't know if it's because you're on, Mikki, or because they're just making a second attempt at Plandemic. But again, we're ready for that. Yesterday, all of our ads were simultaneously banned on Google. Facebook banned the URL freedomplatform.tv. So everybody trying to share the episode during the live stream couldn't do it. All of our posts were taken down as well. Instagram shadow banned everything for fact checking. I couldn't post anything with text on it. LinkedIn took down my personal account that day, and I had a call with YouTube and basically said, you're one upload away from being completely deplatformed. They're like, you don't get another strike, Brian. You're just going to be gone. So that was just our day over here. We woke up this morning and we were suspended on Twitter as well. So, but it's all good, Mikki. This is the price of putting out content that is censored by the platforms. A few headline numbers. We just got the Google Analytics, and we had 1.98 million unique people watching this thing during the stream yesterday, which is a record for us and a record we checked for any documentary stream. So congratulations to you. In addition to that, the download link on our website that's now been shared elsewhere, we've seen 300,000 downloads of the full movie from that alone, and our page has been shared over 250,000 times. So I think it's just getting warmed up as we speak. Everybody loves the movie. The critics are all giving it 0 out of 5 stars. I've never seen such a difference. And the most fascinating thing, Mikki, is it's the mainstream journalists that yesterday seemed to be flagging this to the tech platforms. And we saw the same thing happen with us, where mainstream media is like they're actually censoring the tech platforms, and maybe you can talk more about that. So those are some of the top line numbers. It was crazy here yesterday, but we woke up today with a few bruises. We're nursing our wounds, and we're kind of back. How has the reaction been for you, and how has this felt watching all this happen?
Well, it's been incredible, Brian. The reaction has been very positive across the board, and as you said, it's only the fact checkers and the faux journalists who seem to not get it, but they're paid to not get it, so we understand. But it's been this whole ride has been really incredible. It's been everything you can imagine, and I'm sure that you can imagine, because you've been on a very similar roller coaster ride. when you get out there in this environment of censorship and draconian laws that are being enforced on all of us, and you do your best to tell any kind of truth that collides at all with the mainstream narrative, the attacks are fierce. And it really has been a wake-up call for me to realize just how deeply into this hypnotic state we all are as a result of decades of propaganda being forced at us. And so it's been, the support has been incredible. You learn who your friends are, as I'm sure you know. But the unfounded attacks, to watch the media spin things, to watch them find a video of me playing with my children and somehow make it something negative, to try to find everything just to make people not like me, the character, or not like Dr. Mikovits, the character. It's really about character assassination. It's a very dirty game that they're playing. And so that part of it, it's not that I didn't know that it was there, but to really be at the brunt of it and have all the major networks working to convince the world that I am someone that I'm not, and that Judy Mikovits is someone that she's not, has been a very interesting thing to witness unfolding. But it only gives me more determination to keep fighting this fight. And the more they expose themselves, the better I understand the game, and I think the better we all get at playing the game.
Well, what was the hardest point in the past 3 months when you were making this film? Was there a time where you were like, man, like this is so hard, or I'm getting attacked, or I don't know if we can make it, or what were some of those moments?
Well, I think it was day 2 or 3 after Plandemic 1 went viral. And I woke up one morning and had this flash that it was all a dream, and I felt a great relief. And then as reality set in and I realized, oh no, I actually have to turn my phone on and to feel this next wave of global hate. It was tough. Like I didn't want to get out of bed. I had an emotional release at that moment, and I really had to come to terms with, it's kind of like the old fable of, the devil in the crossroads. I had the choice at that moment to stay on my path and to keep going, or to just bow out and take a turn. And I really knew that it was possible for me. It would have been easy for me to lay low at that point and to say, oops, let's just move on and go someplace else, because it's too scary to be at the forefront of such rage. And I had to really get clear with myself that this is bigger than me. It has nothing to do with me, really. This is something that I've been aware of for years. And if there's a window that's opening right now where we can all finally yell something to the world, let's yell something that does us all some good. Because what's been being yelled at us has put us into this position of really not understanding what it takes to maintain our health and our freedom. And the fact that the media has done such a good job at weaponizing our language, such that now when anyone fights for freedom, it's suddenly a far-right Nazi chant. And it's like that kind of weaponization, and to be accused of being part of groups or receiving money from groups that I have no affiliation with whatsoever, it just gave me a deeper sense of how fierce this fight is. And I had to come to terms with it. Is this something that I want to do? Because it's kind of too late now. I have no choice. But the answer came clear to me. It's like this is what I was born for. I'm not going to be stopped, just like you and all of your people that are part of your platform. We just can't be. It's too vulnerable of a moment right now on this planet. And if we don't wake up now and embrace the unbelievable, and that's really what it requires, is because what's happening is so unbelievable that the cognitive dissonance just it triggers people to just want to crawl back in their holes and believe the same false narrative that we've been living under for so long. But we can't anymore, because we won't survive this narrative. We have to expand our awareness beyond the lies that have been forced at us for so long, or we really won't survive as a species. So and then my children are my main factor for me. It's if I were a single man and I didn't have such a wonderful wife and 2 small children, it's possible that I may make easier choices. But right now I don't feel like I have a choice because I've seen too much, and all of the evidence points in one direction. And so it's just time for us all to step up and do the one thing that I think is become tough for us, and that is be willing to be unliked. We live in this era of social media where it's all about likes and accumulating, tribe agreement. And we just have to step out of that crap and just be willing to not be liked and to not be in agreement with even people that we love the most, and stand in our truth, but to do it in an educated way, with data behind us, with real research behind us. And therein lies the problem, because where do people find truth these days? And I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, and you go deep into that on the film, and I want to talk about those things. How important was it for you to get this thing out as soon as possible? Because, we got it out in August, but, as a filmmaker, you must be at this dilemma thinking, man, if I had 3 more months, but also you're thinking that the world can't wait 3 more months for this information, because this film could literally change the course of history, could change the course of public policy, of public action. So how do you weigh those two factors?
Yes, it's a great question, because we actually made a pretty extreme pivot during the production of part 2. And that was, we set out to release something immediately after part 1. And I did 30 interviews with top doctors. Rashid Buttar was one of them, among a lot of other very notable professors and Nobel laureates. It became clear as we watched the world kind of devolve into this battle of these hot button topics, the mask and social distancing, understanding the game. I took a step back and I said, I don't know that we want to get into this fight at all, because there's no winning this fight. It's designed to just further divide us. The more data we show, the more data they show, the more they go back and correct search engines and change history, such that it just leaves the people battled and divided. And so I didn't want to cause more of that, and I didn't want to be involved in a game that is just unwinnable. And so we made the decision, after we did all these interviews, we made the decision to leave out all of that, because it became clear as we started to analyze all of the fact checkers, all of the debunkers, that they were avoiding the key issues, that the revelations that were spoken by Dr. Mikovits regarding conflict of interest, regarding patents, regarding the money trail. And no one addressed these issues. And that's the game. They say, look at this, just like a magician, look at this over here while this hand is doing this. And so, we just said, no, let's look at the trick hand, only the trick hand. And so we made a pivot that required us to kind of scrap all of our interviews, start over, and to hold this diligent line of let's only focus on what they're trying to hide most from the people. And so that took extra time. So there was this sense of, well, how much longer can we go before we release this, before, the narrative changes out there, or before the world shifts to some new false flag, crazy situation. Let's get it out there. And so there was a great deal of pressure for us to get it out. At the same time, credit to my team, that everyone was mostly concerned with telling the full story. And the full story had to contain the exposing the game of the media and the fact checkers and all of that, because we knew that no matter what we put out there, that people are going to come back and say, well, Snopes discredited it, so I guess we can turn away now. And with that kind of those firewalls set up in advance, there's nothing you can do out there unless people understand that those firewalls, who owns them, who pays for them, and what they really are, they have nothing to do with fact checking. As I say in the film, they're political spin machines.
Yeah, well, that's a bold decision as a filmmaker, to scrap a direction you're going in when you got all that stuff in the can and you have time pressure. Like, that's a seriously bold decision. And, to make that kind of 180-degree turn and say, yeah, let's go after the hand they're not looking at. And for people that haven't seen the film, first of all, they need to go watch it. And then they'll see that from what seems to me is it's something you try to create that's airtight and bulletproof. Like, everything here is fact checkable. It's like, follow this and look at this money, and you're literally reading off documents on the piece So like you said, it's very hard for them to try to character assassinate, dispute these things because it's very factual. Now, it'll be interesting. I'm sure they'll find ways over the next couple of days, but I'm guessing that was your intention, to make it to where it was really bulletproof as a piece, and they couldn't try to take something from here or there and try to assassinate the piece, kind of the way they would character assassinate a person, almost like character assassinate the film.
I was collaborating with over 20 investigators, top researchers, and about 20 doctors that were our ongoing resources that, email threads went around, circulated daily. So every new point that would come up, I would put it in the group and say, poke holes in this, show me where this is wrong. And the points that we could not ourselves prove wrong are the ones that made it into the film. And so they're going to have a really hard time. They're trying. If you saw Politico's, which I have a little piece that I'll read in a minute, but if you saw Politico's attempted hit piece, it's really a joke. Especially if you read the whole thing, you really get the sense of how they play the game. They change little words as if I made a statement that I didn't make, and they debunk a statement that people don't remember whether I made it or not. It's an hour and a half film. They don't know if I said it or not, but they'll actually, based upon a fictional statement, they will then, determine that a claim is inaccurate. And we can go line by line through the political thing and just expose them for what they are, because this is another group that is often funded by Bill Gates and all of the big pharma allies. And so they're ready. They probably had this pre-written, but the funny part of it is they actually said they reached out to you and I, and we didn't respond. And this thing came out immediately after it showed. And so at what point would we have had time to respond to them, right? So that's just all in a way to make it seem shady that we are avoiding their challenge.
Yeah, very much. And I want to go through this and talk about the structure of the film for sure. It was interesting because Facebook banned the URL for the film as being inaccurate and all this COVID stuff, but the film was still streaming at the time. So, how do you ban something if it's not even out yet? It was pretty crazy. And before we just jump into the movie, I know after the first short piece, you must have had lots of people contact you that want to give you money and produce the next film and all sorts of stuff. But I think you made a decision, again, a very difficult decision, Mikki, to keep this independent, to keep this your project, and also to release this to the world. You didn't have to give it away. You basically gave this film away yesterday. You let us live stream it for free. You put it out on all the different sites for sharing. I mean, those are two strong, important decisions. Can you walk us through the logic? And then I'd love to get into the movie.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because that's definitely a point of contention that people have used to try to smear myself and my team. And the reality is that early on with part one, right when it was at its peak of virality, I was contacted by a group through a very good friend who holds the record for the largest single day crowdfunding raise ever. I think it's $26 million. And this person guaranteed me that they would crush their record for Plandemic 2. And, after 3 or 4 phone calls, and after really sitting with this and realizing that this could bring in a great deal of money and resources to allow us to do bigger and better work in the world, we're not in it for that. And I had to make the tough phone call of calling this person back after they had actually created graphics for us and built a landing page and all kinds of stuff. And I had to say that I've changed my mind and we can't do it. And they were blown away and they said, well, why? And I said, well, it's the optics. We have a window of opportunity to do something here that affects all of our lives, all of our health, and all of our freedom. And right now they're looking for any excuse to connect me with some neo-Nazi organization or some, greedy intention, and I think it's something that we can't do right now. And it's also having, I've been in media for over 30 years, and I've watched a lot of companies that I've been part of, a lot of very good friends have that moment when the And again, it kind of goes back to that fable of the devil in the crossroads, where that smiling suit walks in with this, offer of infusion of a lot of money, and they're posing as angel investors, and it feels to anyone who's ever run a company, when money comes at you like that, it's a hard thing to turn away, because typically you're running on the edge, on fumes. And so the feeling of relief that comes with, wow, we could just sell it at this point, or let this person buy in and have a much easier go moving forward, is a temptation that I understand. It comes with relief, the feeling of relief. And I had to really check myself and say, is that going to change things on our end? And how will that affect this? And could that be the thing that literally gives them the ammunition they need to shut us down for good? And so I just decided not to take it. And we haven't turned on one ad. I mean, imagine how many the Plandemic 1 got over 1 billion views, and we didn't turn on one ad for one commercial. And we could have done that and made thousands of dollars, and we chose not to, because it's about getting it to the people. And since then, we've had distribution offers. We've had, as you can imagine, when anything gets this kind of attention, they come out of the woodworks, and we have turned down every single offer. Just because we understand what it will look like, the optics in the world, and also for our own morals and our own principles that we stand upon. It's just not what we're doing this for. And I think there's been a lot of great missions. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of people that are now involved in the stuff that we're uncovering in part 2, I think a lot of them actually began with benevolent missions, and somehow got trapped into the game so far, like so many politicians do. They get trapped into the game so deeply that they can't get out, and it's soul killing. And it's just, as a father, I can't let my soul go and then do my best to try to raise 2 kids as a soulless, empty being. And so I look at that, and just the move becomes clear to me that we just had to say no.
Wow, there's that expression that life imitates art, and then maybe art imitates life. So it's interesting when you're making this movie, and I appreciate you saying that these people don't start off necessarily with bad intentions. Maybe they do want to change the world, but then they have that kind of come to Jesus moment where you got a big check. And this isn't like necessarily a 7-figure check. This is like an 8 or 9-figure check, or a big amount of power, and they make a decision. I mean, you got to study these people's lives. So for you to kind of see that, and in a weird way kind of meta learn on the fly, I mean, still though, that's powerful that you did that. So, and again, I think it's really important though for the purity of this message for people to know that. So, I appreciate you explaining that to us. Let's talk about the film. Maybe for people that don't know it or need a reminder, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the structure or some of the things you talk about, and then maybe we can talk about some of the criticism or what you're expecting coming down the pike going forward.
Yeah, well, where would you like to start on that one?
Maybe the structure of the film, because again, maybe it's important. I mean, maybe we should just cover this now. I mean, the first short that, maybe we call Plandemic 1, that 26-minute kind of interview with Judy and the piece around it. I mean, maybe just a quick history on that, because maybe tell us how you got roped into this whole process, and then maybe talk about how you pivoted and then came into this final iteration.
Wonderful. So I met Judy through a very good friend named Dr. Lori about 2 years ago. She brought her into my office to meet, and she said, "You have to hear this woman's story. It might make a good movie someday." It was kind of that kind of a meeting. And so I sat down and I listened to Judy's story. And I got her intention was so pure, so clear, that she didn't care about anything other than just getting her story out to the world. She was give it away. And I really tested her with a lot of tough questions, and I have a great bullshit meter. And so I looked into her eyes and I listened to her, and I was moved by her story, and I could see the damage that had been done to this brilliant woman. If you just stop for a moment and listen to her, some of the things that she's been criticized for, because she's not a perfect being like all of us. and she doesn't always say the perfect words. And she's a little rough around the edges. And some of that may have to do with the fact that she has been dragged through hell for the past decade plus. And I witnessed in this woman the pain and the damage that has been done. And I saw nothing but truth in her eyes and heard nothing but truth in her words. And it stuck with me. And at the time, I wasn't interested in making a movie about her story, but that experience stayed with me. And so when the pandemic first occurred, I had a meeting with Judy set up, and I sat down with her because I really wanted to learn, like, I want to know what's going on from your point of view. I was very impressed by her knowledge and wisdom that I experienced on our first meeting, and I had seen her a couple times since then, and really got a sense that she's a brilliant woman. And so I wanted to meet with her and find out what was going on. And as we sat down, it became clear to me that I wish I had my camera with me, because it was just what was coming through her was so important, and I thought the world really deserves to know this. So I said, would you, consider coming to my office and sit down, and we'll just make a little interview, and I'll cut it together and I'll put it out online. And it was halfway through the interview with her that I was involved in another movie called The Narrative, which was to really do what a lot of Plandemic did, which was expose the media and who controls the global narrative. And I was already deep, probably 18 months into that project, working with a lot of whistleblowers. And I just knew during the interview with Judy, I said, this is more important right now than the narrative, because it's urgent and it's happening to all of us right now. And I made my decision in my head in that moment that the narrative was going to be pushed aside, and we were going to create something to really expose this pandemic. And that's where it started. And then as we started to edit her interview, of course, there's no way that we could have predicted the extent of its virality and what it did. If I knew that, I certainly would have put a lot more verifying sources and counter interviews in the interview. But for me, it was just really a way to get her story out there and to honor a woman who has been incredibly smeared, wrongfully, punished in the court of public opinion. And so that's kind of where it started. And then, of course, after it went viral, which, is wonderful, because I think one of the best comments, ones that I appreciate the most that I've received from dozens of doctors is, I've probably had a dozen or 15 doctors say, thank you for giving us a voice. And there's nothing that feels better than that. Because when these doctors break down for me the stranglehold that they've been under forever, and the way they express the pain they feel for being unable to serve their oath to do no harm, and that they may see that restored within their lifetime, to feel that feeling is probably the greatest reward that my team and I have experienced through this process.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that must feel so refreshing. I just had a flashback. I mean, in my second conversation with Dr. Rashid Buttar, he said, Brian, I want to invite, 100 doctors onto the Zoom call, and we're going to stream it live. And I was like, okay, it's a crazy idea, but okay. And it was funny because he started making statements, a lot of the same statements that you've made in your movies. And he said, how many doctors agree with this? And you saw all these hands go up, and you saw all of their faces change. And they were saying, wow, I didn't know there were so many of us out there, because I'm not allowed to talk about this stuff. I feel like I can't talk about this stuff. And when they started to see how many doctors actually felt the same way, it was almost like they had this relief, like, I'm not alone. And so yeah. I think it is important that you put these messages out there. That must be an amazing feeling. And so that went viral. And then, like you said, you were going to continue down, I think, a little bit more down that road, and you decided to do that 180 narrative. And so talk about indoctrination, because it is this follow the money concept, but also explores a little bit about the media and the narrative stuff, which you're a specialist in. And that's something that in our first phone call, I remember, I was like, wow, you really have a lot of knowledge of how the whole history of how the media has been co-opted by the government, and you weave that into this film, and it's a great perspective. So maybe you can speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. It's something I kind of fell into just in my, I'll back up a little bit. And there was a defining moment in my life. I was actually near the World Trade Center when it was attacked in 2001. And me and a buddy went to the scene and dug for, did search and rescue, really became body recovery for 3 days. Wow. And the experience of being in a environment of that magnitude, that tragic magnitude, was something that definitely is a wake-up call. But the thing that happened for me really on about day 2.5 was the witnessing of 2,000 men and women who had already been told, we'd been advised that the air that we were breathing was incredibly toxic and would likely cause health issues in the future. And it did for a lot of people. And to see that when that announcement was made, not one person left, because there was still a chance that one human life could be saved. We were, in elevator shafts, pulling out bodies, and at the very slight chance that one life could be saved, all of these people risked their lives, their healthy bodies. And when I saw that, it shook me to the core, because at that point I was pursuing a very typical Hollywood career. I wanted the fame, I wanted the power, I wanted to be known, and it just really had me re-examine as I watched, earth-moving vehicles plow through $200,000 cars that were parked on Wall Street just to get to the point of rescue for people, and realize how quick the material world it means nothing. Two monolithic structures now are dust at our feet, and all of these beautiful cars being flipped and demolished, and symphonies of car alarms going off. There was a moment that I just stood back and had to re-examine the material world and everything that I thought was important. And so that created something in me, and I came back to Hollywood, and then that was my first glimpse at witnessing how inaccurate the media was reporting something that I had just experienced. Nothing was on point. When they said, the Red Cross arrived, just little details, they either had it terribly wrong or they were pushing a narrative for some other agenda, and I couldn't figure it out. I was just intrigued that they could be so misinformed. The major media, all they had to do is ask somebody like myself that was there, and they could get the actual, progression of events, and they weren't concerned with that for some reason, and I thought it was fascinating. And so I started to really pay attention to the media from that point on. But when I returned to Hollywood, I found myself, at the time I had a very lucrative career as a music video director, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I had offers. The labels started calling again once 9/11, the Flames 9/11 went down, and I found myself saying, what is the song about, and what is the concept about? And then it was just like, why? What does this do in the world? I don't. It's entertainment, but do we need more entertainment right now? I mean, it serves a great purpose, but I also started to see it at the point that it crosses the line to become a distraction, where we're not actually engaged in all the things within our world and our local communities that we should actually pay more attention to. And so I just said, I don't want to participate in this game anymore. And it seems to be the only offering that Hollywood has for me. And so I'm out. And I moved, put everything I had in storage, and I went to live on a producer friend of mine had a guest house on a vineyard in Napa Valley. And I was hired to actually write the sequel to an iconic movie. And so I had enough money to survive for a year and just rethink and reinvent what the hell I want to do with myself in my life. And everything changed within that process. And so I created a global film challenge called Elevate Film Festival, which was really challenging filmmakers all over the world to show us what's right with their area, wherever they live, their domain. What's right with it? What's the good news? Who are the heroes? What are the new technologies that we all need to know about? Because we don't get to see any of this stuff on the news. It's just always It just features the worst side of humanity. Let's feature the good side of humanity, because there's so much more good than there is negative. But it doesn't look that way if your only window to the world is a little screen. And so we just started at that time, let's just do our best as a media company to focus our lens on the good stuff of the world and the good people of the world, and just do our best. At least we'll die knowing that we tried. And that is the thing that has evolved into what we're doing now. And it's just gradually, I avoided politics my entire life. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then I suddenly end up on the road with Bernie Sanders and documenting his campaign. And for me, it was the moment Dorothy saw behind the curtain. You know, it was Toto pulls back the curtain, and I'm suddenly have this backstage pass to all of the debates, and I'm meeting all of the candidates, and I'm realizing that this is at the crux. This thing that we call politics is at the crux of everything that's wrong in our world right now.
Wow, man. Sounds like you got a few more movies left in you for sure, Mikki.
Several more, yeah.
But it's interesting because I can now see a lot of this in your films. You know, it's there. It's because your whole personality's in these things. And now I can see more now that I even learn more about you. And so obviously pieces of this are in this narrative. You start off with this new character we've never met before. And again, you start with this kind of, follow the money, follow the facts narrative. And again, you kind of then briefly go into search engines, technology, history of media being co-opted, and then you kind of finish off with a lot of the key players. Maybe you can talk about, what's actually going on, who's the gentleman in the bow tie, and then also what is Politico saying so far about some of the points you made?
Well, the gentleman in the bow tie is Dr. David Martin, and he's now become a great friend. And I can't say enough about this man. We met simply, I had several people reach out to me, say, you have to interview this guy as part of the next Plandemic. And after we flew him in, sat down and met, I realized that this has to be the spine of the next project, because he had information, I will be very transparent to say that there was a moment when we doubted him, because everything was such a bombshell that he had to share, that there was a moment when, after we did the interview, that we all sat down and we said, I don't know. We need to, before we even start cutting this stuff, we need to really research who this guy is. And we need to look at every claim he made, because these things are can they be so true? If they are, this is a bombshell. And wouldn't more people be talking about this? I mean, these are public records, and why isn't this on the front page of everything? And so there was a moment, which is a healthy thing to do, that skepticism. We all were skeptic about David Martin, and so we put a dozen people on it, and they all came back and said, he's legit. And everything that he said, we cannot find. We find a discrepancy. He said, 99 when the date was 98, just a little discrepancy in a number here and there. He mispronounced the Global Health Forum or whatever it is, just mispronounced a couple things. But other than that, this is real. And we need to take everything that this man said very seriously. And so we did. And I'm glad that we did. He has proven to be a very humble and well-intended person that simply cares about the state of our country and the state of our world. And to jump to your other question, the structure of the film, and as most documentaries do, they create themselves. Unless you're just set on a particular story and you've storyboarded ahead of time, a lot of documentaries begin with an interview or two, and then they just expand. And that's what happened with this one. Every time we got to a point, we kept asking ourselves, we'd step out and say, if I knew nothing about this, and I was already skeptical, if all I knew about Mikki Willis and Plandemic and Dr. Judy Mikovits is what I've heard from the media and the fact checkers, what would I think about this new claim they're making? And that would drive us then to go, well, then we better find some documentation.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website, londonreal.tv, or click the link in the description below.